Are you sure it pays to go to college? Well, I think that could be debatable nowadays. And there's new data that came out with the Pew Research Center. And these are great data collectors now, one of the best, I think. And they have some good data that proves it still is. Now, I'm not saying that the value of what you get, at these high tuition colleges and things like that, that's a different story. I think there's a lot of colleges ripping you off, and we pay too much for college. But the data showing if it pays you economically to go to college. Okay, here's what the data show. And this just came out this week. Okay, now if you see the graph goes from left to right, and it's really for different age people, when they were 30 years old. Like when I was 30 years old, I'm down on the left-hand side there. I'm one that calls silence. Like I was born in 1943. That's not baby boomers. That's almost baby boomers. That's the beginning of it. Okay, so when I was 30 years old, see, if you had a college education, you made an average of $38,000. If you had just a high school education, you made an average of $31,000. So that's why when I graduated from high school, God, the kids that went and worked in the factories, man, they were making a lot more money than I was for a long time before I went to college and finally got a decent job and things like that. And then back in like 1980, it still was widening a little more. So people with college degrees were making $41,000 and people with high school degrees were making $31,000. So that's about a third bigger. Okay, and then it started to hit. Okay, in 1980s, that's when the spread started taking off. A college degree was becoming more and more worthwhile. You could make a heck of a lot more money. See, it went up to about $45,000, and really it stuck there. But you see what happened to people with just a 2-year degree or just a high school diploma, they're at about $30,000, so their income went down. So over the last 30 years or so, people with 2-year degrees and high school diplomas saw their income go down. With people with college degrees went up. But the spread, the difference between having a high school or just a 2-year degree versus a college 4-year degree is like a 50% increase in wages. Overall, wages haven't gone up much, but what has happened is certain people went down. So that's the millennials. So if you're 30 years old today, your college degree is worth like a 50% increase in wages over someone who just has a high school diploma. When I was 30 years old, it only meant about 15%. So the value of a college degree, certainly outweighs it. Now look at this next thing. Now this is interesting too. Unemployment now. Okay, who's unemployed more? Well, people with college degrees, very little unemployment. And this is the era of high unemployment. This is back in 2012. But if you just had a high school degree, you have a 12% unemployment rate. So 12% of you with high school degrees are unemployed, where only less than 4%, like 3.8%, are unemployed at that, with that kind of education. Okay, now also take a look. How many people are in poverty? Now this is a little frightening to me, is the millennials. Now that means the people who are, like 30 years old today, 22% of them are in poverty, 22%. Now, if you look at the early baby boomers on this chart, that's on the bottom. So when I was 30 years old, the average and the median income was a lot more. It was about 25% higher. So when I was 30 years old, people who were 30 years old when I was 30 years old are making, like 25%, were making 25% more than people 30 years old today. So the average 30-year-old person today is making 25% less than the average 30-year-old when I was 30 years old. And you see the poverty rate. So we have like 22% of these people are in poverty. When I was 30 years old, only 7% were in poverty. So we've changed a lot as a country. And you know, you just can't live in the past. And you're hanging around old people like me. They just believe in, you know, what America was in the 50s or 60s or 70s or whatever. Man, you know, but it's not that way anymore. You know, things have changed a lot. You got to look at the reality of what's out there now and how you're going to prepare for it. Now look at the widening gap. Now this just demonstrates it a lot. You see, like people in my generation, the silence down the left-hand side. So back in the 60s, you know, the gap between a high school diploma and a college degree was only about $7,000 a year. Now it's $17,000. So that's what's happening today in the world. So, you know, don't dismiss education. You know, nothing's guaranteed, but man, it has to be good. I mean, all the jobs are going to be with brain power. We don't need muscle power anymore. Computers are going to do that. And then even computers are going to do a lot of the brain power too. But then you'll have to be smart enough to add to what the computer's doing. So just to do monotonous jobs or whatever, those days are going to be over. You got to train yourself to do the specialty things, to be better than a computer, because the computer's going to be taking over a lot of stuff. And you got to be smarter, better, faster than those suckers. You know, it's sort of like, you know, John Henry beating the railroad car or something like that. You know, the old myth like that. And that's it. But we are needed, but in a different way. So you got to get that education and training to do that.